All right, Jamie, Lydia, and I presented the Asian carp invasion of the Lakes Basin, and we related the Lotka-Volterra competition equations that we did in class with the biological invasion paper by Hewitt and Huxell. Their model incorporated population growth rates, inter- and interspecific interactions, as well as food web dynamics. The trophic levels of the food web dynamics described were used to define the author's community matrix system, which included 60 total species, 20 of which were primary producers, 20 were primary consumers, and 20 were secondary consumers. The graphs I presented in class all began with a species richness of 2. The 2 species were composed of 2 of the 20 primary producers out of the 60 species, and they were randomly chosen. So then for each scenario, 1 or 2 different species were introduced as invaders, and they were chosen at random as well from the pool of 60 species, but the invaders could not be any of the species initially extant in the community matrix. So a community connectance value was set so that species I affected species J, and species J in turn affected species I. In their model, the term A sub ij, which is seen here, I wrote it down on this little whiteboard for us, represented both the effect of prey and predator, and the effect of predator and prey. And you can look that up in the paper. It's described in detail. So eigenvalues were used to determine the stability of the simulated community, and were used as the basis for determining equilibrium density of each species. When a species invaded, its effects on the community matrix were measured by equilibrium density. So the species with positive equilibrium densities remained extant in the community matrix, whereas species with negative equilibrium densities were grouped, and then out of those, the species with the most negative eigenvalue was determined extinct and removed from the community matrix. So 20 communities were assembled over 500 time steps, and in each scenario, again, scenario A represented a single species invasion at low density. Scenario B represented 2 species invading at low density, and scenario C represented a single species invading at high density, as I described in class. And so in scenario A, all 20 communities reached an invasion resistance state, and you can see in the graph how it levels out. And every community resulted in different species diversity and species richness. And to address Reed's question in class about the species diversity, it basically incorporates the number of species with the abundance of each species, just to clarify that. And under this scenario, colonization of the invading species decreased with time, meaning that as community matrix diversity increased, invasion success decreased. In scenario B, complete community resistance was not reached, and in scenario C, colonization rate was even higher than in scenario B. So the paper basically signifies the importance of community connectivity and richness, and as a community in general becomes more complex through increasing species richness and diversity, it is able to resist invaders and maintain its complexity. So, relating it all back to Asian carp, if the Asian carp successfully invade the Great Lakes Basin and drive their competitors, the species that are native to that community, if they drive them to extinction, it will decrease the Great Lakes resistance to community resistance by the carp, and so increasing carp populations will just make it more susceptible to more invasions by even other potential invaders.